Check the description for the following discount codes.
Welcome to today's review. In front of me in this room is a fully assembled sim racing cockpit with a steering wheel and some pedals all attached, pretty much ready to go. But where is it, I hear you ask? Well, if you've seen the thumbnail, which I'm sure you have, you might have some clue. What we've actually got here is not just a coffee table, and a pretty decent looking coffee table at that, but a fold away sim racing rig, similar to in functionality something like a wheel stand, where you would use, in this case, your sofa as the seat, and this as your wheel stand. So what we've got here is this. It's available in a few different options. What I've got here is the oak herringbone coffee table option. They do like a plant stand, one where it would be sort of tall and thin, and you can also get a walnut option as well. And I think it's such a cool idea, because one of the things a lot of people struggle with is, where do you put your wheel stand, your fold away play seat challenge, or even a full size cockpit, and how do you keep the missus happy as well? So the idea of this is it kind of solves all that in one. It's a coffee table like 99% of the time that just sits in the middle of your front room, right in front of your TV. And that's the other thing, a lot of us have, a big TV in the front room, perfect for doing all our sim racing on, but we're relegated to a smaller room, out the way of the wife, the kids, whatever your circumstances may be. Now, this isn't a cheap option at the moment. This is very much aimed at, I would say, people perhaps that live in cities and that have an apartment with limited space, but that also have a little bit of money kicking about, because the option we see in front of me here is €980. And that is, of course, big money for what is effectively a wheel stand in functionality. But you've got to remember, we can't really compare the price of this to, a full aluminium profile cockpit, because if you're looking at something like this, you haven't got anywhere to put a full-size aluminium profile cockpit. And the materials, the quality and the construction is all of a very high standard. This is genuinely oak, this top piece here. It's not a veneer, it's not a laminate, it's actually oak. And then I think the rest of it is powder coated steel, like this outer casing here. And then once we get inside, I believe it's aluminium that's powder coated. But everything is to a great standard. Anyway, enough waffling. Let me remove my fake plant. They are also going to be doing a more budget option that doesn't cost as much as this. But this is weighty, right? This is a hefty piece of wood, and the finish on it is really, not that I know much about wood, but it feels good to me. It's been made in conjunction with a Dutch high-end furniture manufacturer, is what I've been told from the guys at Coffee Racer, which is of course what the brand is here. Now, I'll grab my GoPro and show you what's inside here before I then kind of unfold it and show you how it works. So this is what it looks like with the top off. You can see we've got the wheelbase here, and it's kind of sitting on top of the pedals there. Now, depending on what wheelbase and pedals you're using, things will fit slightly differently here. I've had to take my steering wheel off because it wouldn't fit on the top here and with the lid to go on. It's partly because I'm using the load cell brake kit, and it actually says it's kind of not compatible with that. The reason for that is because if it wasn't the load cell brake kit, that pedal would squish down a bit under the weight of this and you'd have more clearance. The other thing I've had to do is actually drop the pedals down and just slide them back this way to give me this clearance. So, if you're using a Logitech or a Thrustmaster setup, it all fits without any of this sort of mucking about, and you don't need to take the steering wheel off. But this is what I've had to do in this application. I've just chucked my power supply here, and my cables are all dangling around, but they give you a load of cable ties, and there are little fixing points sort of here, there and everywhere for you to cable tie things to, you know, to make a nice, neat, permanent installation. If we look down the back here, there's pre-drilled holes all along the sides here, and you've got these kind of quick release, like they're like thumb screws, but you just pull them here on either side of the pedal tray, and that allows you to pop that in, move the pedal tray around, up, down, backwards, forwards, wherever you want it to be. Now I think that's one of the things that's actually going to be changed, because this is like a beta version, and I'll explain that a bit more as we get into the video. I think they're being changed for this style of quick release instead. And there will be some other changes as well. But essentially what you see here is like, you know, the fully functioning product. So whilst it is kind of a beta, it all works, it all functions as it should. There's just going to be a few minor tweaks. Now the wheelbase is secured. Got a couple of bolts here, and there's another couple under there that you can't see because I've slid it down. We get some like anti-slip rubber matting. Just get that steering wheel out of the way. And you get a bag of, as I say, cable ties, nuts, bolts, some Velcro ties as well, again for your cable management there, and another bag with a couple more thumb screws in and some rubber feet, I believe, that you can put under your furniture to help your furniture not slip around. You actually also get a USB extension cable, because this obviously, it might be quite far away from your PC or your games console, but that's how things look inside. And this piece here lifts up and forward, and I'll demonstrate that in a minute. If you look here, you can see these little teeth. This is where your height adjustment for your wheel deck comes into play. You literally lift it up and slot it in where you want it to be, and you do up one of these quick release handles. Well, you can do up one of them, there's four of them you actually do up, but so there's quite a range of height adjustment to get it exactly where you want it to go. But that's what it looks like inside. So let's actually get it sort of set up in the driving position and see how that looks. Now, having already had a little bit of a play around with this as I was sort of bolting the steering wheel and everything on, it is a little fiddly to get up and into position. I guess the more you do it, the easier it will become. But essentially, you just pick up your steering wheel, it swings forward like this. Now this would of course be too low. So what you do is you lift it up to a height that you want, like so. In fact, I'll show you the highest setting. That is the highest setting, which is like way too high for me. So I'm just going to drop it down a little bit and kind of guess roughly where I want it to be. Let's go somewhere around about there. And then those quick release handles that I mentioned earlier in the video, you just snip those up tight like that, and that's that solid in place. Now, as I say, my cables are not cable managed because this isn't a permanent install, so I've got wires kind of dangling around. You will need some sort of, you know, extension lead for your power and your USB as well. Just get out, in fact there's the USB extension cable, just get out these few bits so that I can actually use it. I mentioned a minute ago I had to pop the little sort of thumb screws out that allow the pedals to move around, but that is only because of the fact that I'm using the load cell pedals here with this CSLDD. If you weren't, the pedal would compress and you wouldn't have to do it, and your pedals could stay exactly where you left them. Again though, I think looking at this, that's very much going to vary depending on what your steering wheel base and pedal setup is. So for me, I now have to just sort of pull them forward a little bit and find the holes at the side where I want them to go. Now again, this is changing from what I understand in the brief that I was given, but that's how long it took me to lock it back in place. They're where they need to be now, they're not going to move. So even if it stayed like that, it's still not a big deal. And as I say, this is technically a beta version, but it is available for purchase because it all works You know, there's nothing missing or incomplete. You know, and as you see with the lid on and packed away, it looks just like a piece of furniture. So these are available to buy, because it's just one guy, I think, that sort of started this up. And so he wants to get these beta ones sold before like the final version becomes available to market. At least I believe that's his strategy. Again, my cables are just going to be dangling around, you know, because this is obviously not going to stay here. This is what I use for testing all sorts of things. You would, you know, like I say, there's little sort of tabs under here and here where you would cable tie all your cables to, so they wouldn't be dangling in the way. But this is essentially how it works. Now, there's no shifter mount that I'm aware of, and we've got two thumb screws here that you can undo, and that allows you to slide your wheelbase forwards and backwards a reasonable amount as well. I'm just going to kind of leave it in that position for now. I'm just curious whether we can actually adjust the angle of this by undoing these back quick releases. Oh, we can. That's handy. Although not massively. So there is some angle adjustment, but not huge, because that's kind of, you know, it's a nice thing to have. And then what you would do is put your legs through, well, you pull it right up to your sofa first, or your chair, or whatever it is you're doing, and that's your sort of racing position. Now for me, these pedals are still a little bit further away than I would need. The steering wheel is about where I would want it to be. So I'm just going to move my pedals back towards me a touch. I may even throw another cushion behind my back because I'm in quite a relaxed driving position, although it's quite a comfortable driving position, I'm not going to lie. Yeah, I'm going to tweak a few things, and I'm going to get the cables all plugged in, and then we'll take it for a spin, and you know, I'll put the camera a bit closer here so you can see how it looks for rigidity and what have you. But already, I can tell you, this thing is really, really solid. I want to say probably more solid than any wheel stand that I have tested, and that partly because of the way it's constructed, and mostly because of how heavy it is, along with the weight of your legs kind of dangling on it as well. I'm sure they said it was 40 something kilos, give or take. So it is pretty solid. I don't think we're going to have any trouble, you know, with this little CSL-DD, you know, bolted to it. I probably wouldn't recommend it for, you know, powerful direct drive wheelbases, as you're going to want something more solid. But let me just get this all plugged in and fired up and take it for a little test drive and see how it looks. Before we get into the sort of driving segment, I thought I'd just give you a little close-up of what it looks like all set up now as well, and just show you again where the adjustment is on this. So you've got this thumb screw here and the same the other side for moving it backwards and forwards. As you come inside, these two quick releases here are what allow you to adjust the height and the tilt. And then if we look down at my pedals on the pedal tray is probably 3 or 4 mil thick. It's pretty solid, and the wheel deck is as well. Again, it's these that you just pull out there, and there's all these holes dotted around, high, low, all over the place. So you can, I don't know, I mean, they're even right at the front there. I don't know why you'd need them there, but they are. So you can get your pedals exactly where you want. And again, I've done no cable management because this is only a temporary setup. But that's kind of what it looks like, all set up and ready to roll. You can see my extension leads over there. I didn't actually need one for my USB cable. That happens to be long enough. And there is the Coffee Racer logo. So let's get this fired up and have a little go. So I think the easiest way to get in and out of this from my little bit of playing around is to just kind of slide it away from you and then put your legs in and then kind of slide it towards you. And I was a little dubious about like whether my legs would catch on this sort of bar at the back here, but they don't. Although what I think might be a good idea would be to have like a little flap that could fold down here, just so that if you have got a sofa that sits a bit low, you know, you could do that if you wanted to, or maybe if you've got really short legs or something, that would work. But otherwise, it actually works. It feels like it works really well. And in just my little bit of testing so far, it really is very solid. So I'm quite impressed. We'll just do a little bit of, I'll just do a 30-second sort of demo here, and I'll just throw it around. You know, the steering wheel's at maximum force feedback, just so that you can see whether this will wobble around or not. Now I am using the load cell brake pedal here, and I've got it at about 65–70% force required. If you have it up 100%, then this will slide across the carpet as you brake. But you can kind of counter that a little bit by gripping your steering wheel quite firm and putting some quite good force on it, and it doesn't move. So the whole thing actually works surprisingly well. Now, I mean, that price, 980 euros, is a strong price, and speaking to them, they can't really do it any cheaper and it be a viable production option, you know, partly because of the materials it's sort of constructed out of and the price of everything at the moment. Wood is expensive, especially things like oak, I imagine. And perhaps the sort of low quantity of production numbers also makes things a little more expensive than they could be otherwise. I don't know, I'm just speculating there. But as I said earlier on in the video, this, I can see this being in, you know, someone that lives in a city, in an apartment, a flat that just doesn't have a lot of room, but that does earn, you know, enough money to be able to justify that sort of expenditure on, you know, on a piece of sim racing furniture, which is a strange thing to say. It's definitely the first time I've reviewed a piece of sim racing furniture. But I mean, as you can see, even with the force feedback up all the way, which is 8 Newton meters with this power supply, it feels solid to me. I mean, I don't feel any sort of wobble or flex. Maybe you'll see some on camera that I'm not experiencing here, but if this was the only way I had to race, I'd be like, I'm on an 86-inch screen in my front room, like I'm sat on my sofa, which is comfortable. You know, I'm in a GT3 car here on the Nürburgring, and I'm racing around. I know the sound is coming out of my Yarmo 5.1 surround setup. It's actually a pretty decent experience. I mean, if I was actually doing this, I would have all my overhead lights off, but that wouldn't be very helpful for shooting videos. I'd be sat here in the dark, but you know, you'd be in there. It'd be a nice little setup. If you've got no space for a full size, you know, a full size rig somewhere, not a dedicated room. But anyway, let's just give this a bit of a shake around, just so I can look as well. In fact, I mean, yeah, well, we've got a little bit of movement there, and if I give it back and forward, I can actually make the thing lift up a little bit. But I wasn't doing that whilst I was driving, because why would I be? It works. It does work. So what should we do now? Well, let's pack it away. That's probably the thing to do, and we'll see how that works. So yeah, as I said a minute ago, I think sliding it forward and getting your legs out this way, probably the quickest and easiest way to do that. Now for me, I need to pop my wheel off, as I mentioned earlier. I don't quite have the clearance. And again, because I haven't cable managed anything, I will be disconnecting my cables. Obviously, if you actually own one of these, you wouldn't be doing this. You would leave them all plugged in, because they'd all be neatly cable managed out of the way. Now, The only other thing I have to do is those two quick releases for the pedals here. I need to just pop in and slide my pedals back. As I mentioned earlier, with the load cell pedal, this doesn't compress the brake and give me the clearance I need. So then it's just a case of undoing these quick releases here, like so. And I imagine we lift up and then just slide our way down like that. Yeah, that's the one. That's in there. And then obviously if this were me and this was my actual setup, I'd then put my steering wheel in there and my 240 volt plug, grab the lid, which is just over here, out of the way. Grab the lid, put it on, spin it round, get my fake plant, and the missus would never even know I'd been sim racing. I think that's not a bad little setup, to be honest. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I mean, if you can afford one and if you need one, this is going to be very niche, obviously. I think it looks great and I think it works really well. And what I look forward to, for those of us that couldn't justify this sort of money, I look forward to seeing what they come up with as their sort of budget or entry level offering, which is going to be a very similar design, but I imagine just not made of oak and such expensive, you know, components and quality of parts. But hopefully it will still have the same functionality. Anyway, that's my sort of review slash preview of the Coffee Racer Beta. As I say, these are, as you can see, fully functional as they are. And depending when you buy one, you may see the pedal tray has the quick release, quick release arms like what we have for the wheel deck, rather than the sort of thumb screw type ones that pop in and out at the minute, or you may still get those. I'm not exactly sure how they're implementing these changes as they do it, whether you'll get like literally as it is there or whether you'll get a few extra bits that have been changed. But I mean, you can speak to them, drop them an email and ask them if you're curious. But it is, as you can see, a fully functioning, you know, sim racing fold-away cockpit or wheel stand, however you want to describe it really. But yeah, I mean, it gets the thumbs up from me. It works exactly like it's supposed to. It is just expensive, so that's only going to be down to you guys whether you can, you know, sort of justify the money or think it's worth the money, you know. But that is something I can only leave up to you. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and as always, take it easy.